So here in my hometown, in a place called Elsica, not too far away, there's a wonderful place called Maison de Bru. And if you are ever in the area of Elsica or Barnsley, I highly recommend you go there and you go see them because they have easily one of the best selections of beer and craft beer, ciders you could possibly ask for. It is an amazing selection, and I always love going there. And of course, it's one of these places where you can go in and you can take a couple of bottles and you can take them away, take them back home, or you can they've got all the seating out, so you can go, here you go, I'm gonna have this, crack it open and start drinking it there and then. um it's been a cracking place. Opened what? Ooh, must be 20. I want to say 2015, maybe a bit earlier. I can't remember now for sure, but it's been around a while. Been around a fair while, and in particular with Brexit, it has really struggled to get brews in the numbers they're lucky that they get in, should we say, larger shipments, but it's been increasingly difficult for them to get stock in from Europe because of Brexit. And that's just a shop that sells beer. So imagine now you are a UK beer brewer, and of course you've got the UK market, and you had the entire European market to sell to as well. And we did quite well at this. We did quite well at this indeed. UK craft beer brewers used to compete very, very well in the Netherlands, in France, in Germany, even in Belgium. They used to do incredibly well. But of course, because of Brexit, we saw the infamous company, I think it was down south, the Old Dairy Brewery, I think it was called, put forward as export champions. Look at this company doing excellent export. Well, only a couple of months later, their entire exporters, those thousands of people that from the continent used to buy beer from them, went down to one. And even he ended up stopping. And that is a loss to a brewery represented in the thousands of pounds. But it seems now that breweries, especially small craft beer breweries, are being really hit. And pardon me, and Brexit is the key that is destroying all these craft breweries. So we're going to have a look at that today, because I think this, as we always go about, I love talking about businesses and how Brexit has affected them, because this was one thing that the Brexiteers said wouldn't happen. Business, you can carry on as usual. That was a complete lie. The Brexiteers knew it was. But you have all these businesses now suffering because of Brexit, because, well, they were lied to. And today, unfortunately, it's the craft brewing industry. And we had a big booming industry here in the UK in this. And it seems that not only due to Brexit, but COVID, the cost of living crisis, that boom has now been brought to an end. So we're going to go over this piece from The Guardian covering this, because it's a crime. It's a shame that this industry that had been a booming industry here in the UK, its future is now very, very much in doubt. It is very, very uncertain. So we're going to have a look at this piece, because it's, if you are a craft beer drinker like myself, it's very, very depressing to see, and worrying, the fact that your maybe favorite independent brewer might not be long before it closes down, and that's very sad. But As always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, there are links down below to help support the channel. So let's crack on into this to get through this. So, this comes from The Guardian with the title of "It All Disappeared with Brexit. Craft beer boom ends as more than 100 UK firms go bust." 100 UK firms go bust. Oh. So, Kimi Carl Jarman and his brother Marco poured their life savings into Bone Machine Brewing Co., which opened in Plockham, East Yorkshire, back in 2017, before moving to Hull as part of the craft beer revolution that swept Britain. The entire investment, not including the time and labour that we have given for free, was about £70,000, Carlman said. 4 weeks ago, it was gone. That was it. My parents' retirement. It just got too much, Carlman explained. It was Brexit. We were heavily geared for export. We'd be selling to Finland, Sweden, Norway, Ireland, the Netherlands, Italy, Spain. We had Hungary in the pipeline, and it all disappeared with Brexit. And I keep on telling people it's not just this industry. Every single story we cover on this channel, there is another industry. So in this case, it's, craft beer. It will be an entirely different industry suffering the exact same consequences of Brexit, of them losing all that business, of those customers. And bear in mind, as he said, selling to all those different countries, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Ireland, Netherlands, Italy, Spain, that represents thousands of pounds, possibly even millions in lost business. So the post-Brexit trading agreements with the European Union countries meant that the Bone craft beers needed to be accompanied by an expensive and time-consuming paperwork. Everyone was saying it's too complicated to import anything from the UK anymore, Carlman said. In terms of pure output, that was about 30% to 40% of what we made. Keeps in line of what we've been seeing. We see it every single time. It is between 30 to 40%. That is how much companies are losing. That seems to be the average that we are seeing constantly. Every single time we cover a business or companies or industries like this, it's between 20 and 30%. That is a huge loss to a business to lose 30 to 40%. Anyway, he continues. In terms of income, it was probably more than half. Bone Machine is one of more than 100 small brewers that have been forced out of business in the past 18 months, hit by a combination of Brexit, the pandemic, and cost of living crisis that now have threatened to change the beer duty laws. In June, the accountancy firm Mars had found that over 45 small brewers had gone into liquidation, and many more have either been sold or swallowed by rivals. Steve Dookie, the founder of the Manchester brewery and taproom Beer Novellum, which shut last year, has been charting the closure of these breweries since 2022 and had identified at least 83 last year which had closed down, with a further 33 so far this year and 4 more under threat. Brexit was not the only problem for Bone Machine. COVID hit very hard, Carlman said, and the final nail in the coffin was the cost of living crisis. Our production costs doubled and our consumer base was halved. So while people were getting worse off, the multinational brewers were going to pubs, to free houses, and saying, "We'll give you cheap kegs, but we want control of all your lines." Carlman has now found a job in sales for a different brewer, but has given up his live stream, saying, "It cost a lot in mental health and even physical health. I developed a blood clot. It just wasn't worth it. And I feel for all the staff. We employed about 5 people. I saw them all last week. They were all in tears." The company is not in liquidation at this stage, and the brewer facility is currently mothballed, and Coljim is still hoping to find a buyer. Other businesses affecting the industry have been the shortage of carbon dioxide following the early stages of the energy crisis, and of course, Russia's full scale invasion of Ukraine, which has raised the cost of barley and hops. These are the brewery shutdowns every year. That's just normal business, said Yarvin Seth, the founder of the Jolly Good Beer, an independent distributor of craft beers. But there's more shutting down this year than the previous 8 years of doing business. 3 years ago, a keg would cost £100. It's now going to cost you £150. So pubs go, no, we'll skip that. Staffing is still hard, and electricity is still pretty expensive. And even though customers have now less money in their pockets, they haven't lost their taste for craft beers. Larger companies have been doing well, including Brewdog, Camden Town Brewery, and Beavertown, with the grocer reported that they have seen supermarket sales rise by more than a quarter. So, this is the big rise of people drinking home. There's a clear change in consumer habits going on here. And it's maybe a number of different things causing it. But if you go to a supermarket, you've got less choice unless you are a big name or you're lucky enough to be able to get in front of a supermarket buyer. And then if you do get in front of a supermarket buyer, you've got to be able to produce X amount of quite big volumes. And if you can't produce that, or if you put your stuff on the shelves and it doesn't sell, well, next time they won't order from you. They're very, very, very cutthroat, the supermarkets, when it comes to beer, these type of things, because it's become a very, very competitive market. But Seth does believe that drinkers will now have less choice, something that is now keenly felt in the beer culture built around constant change and some esoteric beers. We're seeing less of the crazy beers, the triple IPAs, and the 10% pure ales, the cans for more than £10, that kind of thing. So we're going to see lower strength beers and less hypey hops. And that's because of the change in the beer tax, because it's all to do with the alcoholic strength. So you're going to see a lot of beers change their alcoholic volume. We're going to now get a lot lower alcoholic volumes, a lot lower. And that's going to radically change the taste of beer. You might not taste it now, but give it a year or two, and you will certainly be able to feel the taste difference in a lot of the beers that you drink. So another reason for the change is the new rules on beer duty. Beer, wine, and spirits used to have different levels of tax, but from the 1st of August, they will now have been taxed according to alcoholic content. This means a 10% rise on bottles and cans of beer. And according to the British Beer and Pub Association, the stronger craft beers are harder hit. Meanwhile, lager hasn't gone away. Pete Brown is the co-founder of Forest Row Brewery in South London, whose main product is called Posh. Out of the 100 beer drinkers, about 70 are lager drinkers. So no matter what, he said, the thing is that lager is like being naked on stage. When you have an IPA, you're smelling and tasting stuff. That flaw that exists in an IPA cannot be covered with a hoppy aroma, but with lager, it is much more delectable and a balanced product. Brown, who's American and said that craft beers had been through a very brutal period. The craft beer bubble that now burst in the States in the late 90s, and now the same thing is happening here. Everybody thought it was cool. Everybody started doing it, and then everyone was competing to have the next big thing. You overwhelm your own market to even so that even the most loyal customers can't tell the difference between your key brands and your one-offs. In a bust, people go back to things that they recognize, and we are definitely in a bust. So, I mean, what more do you want to say? Well, that's exactly what we've been hearing, especially sort of the comments from the Kojiman guy there with the sorry, what they called now, the yeah, Machine Brewing Co. That's what we've heard consistently. Every single time we've covered a business that's having severe Brexit problems, or they're complaining about Brexit, we've lost between 30%. That seems to be the average at the moment. Oh, we've lost 30%. Now, they don't very often tell you what that means in numbers. But he admitted, of course, that was well over than half their income. That's a lot of money for a business to lose. And to try and replace that, in the fact that you've now got Europe who's just going, yeah, if you're a UK company, unless it's a incredibly good product that has a high demand, you can forget it. So that's most of the craft beers from the UK pretty much out of it. And then you've got your own home market that's going through incredibly tough times at the moment. And as the guy pointed out at the bottom there, the craft brewing beer bubble has now gone bust, and people are going back to brands that they know and they recognize. And with this increase, the increase in the beer duty, which is going to have some really terrible effects on beers because it's again based on alcoholic volume, you're going to see weaker, lower alcoholic brews. It's yeah, it's going to change the taste of beer completely in the UK because of that. And this was, it was all done to simplify it. We just want to simplify it. Now in the EU, they do it all differently because they all know and they understand that. But oh no, we're going to simplify it. We're going to put it all together. We're going to tax it by alcoholic volume. Well, what if you're a spirit and gin or vodka that has a very, very high alcoholic limit? Then what? Then what do you do? It's yeah, it's gonna be, I think, very, very bad times for not only just small brewers and independent brewers, but I think for the whole alcohol drink industry as a whole, whether you brew beer, gin, whatever, you're gonna go through a lot of very hard times. And I'd be very interested to see what the gin industry is going through with these changes. So I might maybe make a video about that in the near future, but we'll see. Because that's also going through a big boom period. So we'll see how that's being affected at the moment by especially those changes in the alcohol duty. But of course, that's for next time. And of course, as always, until then, we'll see you all very soon.